Loved my post nerding out about the history of decorating our dogs. So, we're gonna dive in and nerd out a little bit more because what's more fun than nerding out about dogs and history? Come on. A lot of people think that dressing up our dogs is a very recent trend, but it turns out that humans have been adorning our pets for thousands of years across all kinds of cultures that were not interacting with one another. So this is like not a unique phenomenon. This is something that was happening throughout human history for thousands of years. Let's start with ancient Mesopotamia, which is one of the world's earliest civilizations, dating back to around 3500 BCE. In Mesopotamia, dogs were not just companions. Of course, they were protectors and hunting partners, and they even had spiritual significance. So they wore decorative collars, and we know that these were not just functional. They weren't simple, like straps of leather in order to keep track of your dog or to chain them in place. These were intricately decorated collars. They were made with jewels, braids, beads, and even metal engravings. These collars reflected not only the status of the dog in the home, but also the owner's wealth and status. These collars were definitely not just practical, they were a symbol of the dog's importance in the society. Next up, in ancient Egypt, where dogs were very connected to the divine, the Egyptians revered dogs and linked them to the god Anubis, the god of death and the afterlife. While they didn't exactly dress their dogs up, wealthier families definitely adorned them in leather and gold collars as a sign of respect. And in some cases, beloved dogs were buried with jewelry as a tribute for their journey into the afterlife. Moving to ancient Rome, dogs played obviously a very different role. Romans used dogs for hunting and herding and even in battle, so they definitely were more functional. So, dogs that were used in battle wore leather or metal armor called lorica, which protected them during fights. So, it definitely wasn't about fashion as much as it was about survival. However, it is one of the earliest examples of functional dog clothing. Another story from ancient Rome that we cannot pass up is the Pompeii dog. So, this dog was frozen in this position, of course, when Pompeii erupted. But because he was frozen in this position, he was also very well preserved. And the collar he was wearing when he died was very well preserved. So, in recreations, we can see that this collar was adorned with spikes and engraved with the story of how the dog protected his owner from wolves. Now let's head to ancient China, where dogs also held a high place of honor. During the Tang Dynasty specifically, which is 600 to 900 AD, noble families would sometimes adorn their dogs with decorative collars and especially with symbols of protection. So these collars could be really ornate and often featured bells because the sound of the bell was believed to ward off evil spirits. So we see that they were trying to protect their dogs. These dogs were a part of the family, they were a part of the household, they were not just functional creatures. In Japan, especially during the Edo period, dogs like the Akita were respected hunting partners. They were also loyal companions to their samurai families. While the Japanese didn't necessarily dress their dogs, some noble families did give them decorative collars with inscriptions marking their lineage as a way to honor the dog's heritage and show off the pride of a well-bred hunting dog. Samurai dogs also eventually began wearing armor, which was then picked up by nobility, who then began dressing their dogs in outfits. Jumping over to ancient Peru, the Moche civilization between like 100 and 700 AD, of course, again, had a very spiritual connection with dogs, particularly with the Peruvian hairless dog. These dogs appear in Moche pottery as spiritual guides, and while they didn't wear clothing, they were often adorned with ritualistic markings and symbols, especially for ceremonies. They were believed to help souls transition into the afterlife, and so they were also often buried with humans and given sacred adornments as part of their funerary rituals. And last but not least, and this is absolutely not the last instance, this is just the last instance in history that we're going to go through today. In ancient Mesoamerica, the Aztecs cherished the Mexican hairless dog. The traditional name of these dogs I'm going to put on the screen because I simply can't pronounce it. While they weren't dressed up, similar to the Peruvian dogs, they were adorned in ceremonial markings and painted with religious symbols. They were honored as spiritual protectors, and the Aztecs believed that these dogs could ward off evil spirits. So as you can see, dressing up dogs is absolutely not a new thing. This is an age-old human tradition. We love our dogs and we love them to look cute. Throughout human history, dogs have taken a place of special importance alongside humans. And so keep that in mind next time you feel weird putting your dog into a sweater.